Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 191. I am Annie Fuchsia, or just simply Annie. I am a full-time streamer on Twitch, play a lot of World of Warcraft and sometimes other games as well. As usual, my co-host for the night is Perculia.
Hey everyone, I'm Perk. I am the site director for Wowhead. I oversee all the news and guides and features on the site, and it's always really cool to do the show and share what's new in the world of Warcraft, what's popular on Wowhead, and also the hilarity when my cat interrupts the show. We didn't have a show last week, so we have some interesting news related to esports and the Q&A to cover this week. But it's still kind of a quiet period. There's no PTR, there's no PAX announcements yet. Sass is not here because he's on vacation, but we can just no giveaway, but we'll just jump right into it with stuff to discuss.
We'll try to keep track of chat in case you guys do have any questions. Try to take them directly, and if anything else is going on, hopefully we will be aware. Sass is not here, but we'll do our best without him. We will miss him for sure.
If you want to see, I know sometimes he'll post in chat the links we're discussing. All of that is on the related Wowhead article on the front page. So if you're like, oh, what's the Q&A? It's linked right there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Indeed. But yeah, let's get right to it. So we had a Q&A that we weren't able to talk about last week since we missed the show. Would you like to give us a summary of what happened?
Yeah, so this did not cover 8.2 as some people hoped it would, but they did have some interesting tidbits here and there. I felt there was a few rambly answers, but then there were some that were more cutting to the point. The Caverns of Time portal will return in 8.2. Will be in the Stormwind and Orgrimmar portal rooms. No allied races are scheduled for 8.2. Thalkiel might make a return, and then they said, Xalatath is an artifact that came back, and she'll be involved in several important plots. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with her, because obviously she's not just going to appear in Crucible of Storms and then go away.
Yeah.
RP servers available for Classic. And at this point, I felt was interesting. They said that people were asking that leveling does not feel rewarding, it feels bad. And Ian said that they are seriously discussing the idea of a level squish to cut out a lot of the bloat and go back to the idea that every time you level up, you get something meaningful as a reward. Because, right now from 110 to 120, you stop getting talents at 100. There's no perks along the way. You just level up and you get less, power from each stat. So you feel weaker. And it just feels like this long slog. So he was saying that they were honestly thinking of having a level squish, but then would that take away the prestige of feeling like you don't have as many levels? So it's a double-edged sword, but I think it's interesting how they're talking about their plans in advance with us still in the brainstorming phase, and they ask people for feedback on it. So maybe I don't know, maybe this could be a 9.0 thing or a expansion after thing they were thinking of doing, but at least they know that the leveling does feel pretty blah right now.
It's definitely interesting that they're considering it as well, because it's one of those things, even with the item level squish, because that only happened once, right? Like, there were number squishes and damage and health pools and things like that, but they only did the item level squish once, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was twice. There was one in Warlords and then the one going into BFA.
Oh yeah, the recent one too. Okay. Yeah. Well, basically, even the item level squish felt a bit like it took away something because we're used to, we remember the old days. We remember what item level was to what expansion. We remember what item level was in which raid even. I remember, 277 being the best thing you could get during the ICC times. And it kind of takes some of it away, but does it matter that much? I guess not really. The memory is a memory. You can still talk about the item levels. So once you squish the levels, then you can't really feel that now you're in the TBC era or now you're in the Lich King era. But then again, maybe you don't really care about those things anyways.
I mean, that has been getting blurred too, because with the dynamic leveling,
that is true as well.
It's not like, oh, Hellfire is the zone you only do at 60. It's like, well, you could actually go to Borean Tundra at 58 as well in Northrend. So it's getting blurred with TBC and Wrath sharing a batch of levels, and
Yeah,
then
it
Mob
kind of
and
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a good thing. They just have to make sure that they don't run into a problem several expansions from now where it's like, oh, like leveling was fun until 9.0 and then I just got pointless levels from the expansion afterwards.
Yeah.
It would be cool though to restructure and have like, oh, you get a special amount every few levels or a talent or I don't know, just something special. Right now it feels pretty it just feels pretty anticlimactic.
I just saw a comment in chat saying I thought it was 2 stat squishes and 1 item level squish. Because that's what I thought it was
That's
as
true.
well, but I'm not 100% sure. It is true. Okay.
Yeah.
So the item level squish is... Because the stat squishes, I didn't mind at all.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I felt like the numbers are getting ridiculous anyways. I mean, the numbers are exponentially increasing even within an expansion. So, like, I don't mind it kind of resetting. But the item level squish was a little bit... I can't really call it sad, but, like... There was something that was sort of taken away. Yeah, I don't know. It felt a bit more. And I can imagine with levels, actual character levels will also feel a little bit more than like the stat squish or the item level squish.
Or if someone is a returning player, you're like, oh, I quit and I was 110 when I quit and now I logged on and I'm level 90? What? Like, yeah, I can imagine there being some confusion if you took a break and then the squish happened.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting one. Someone mentioned Paragon levels.
Oh, interesting. Just basically how like, oh, we're in Diablo now. We've already got the RNG and Titan forging.
Might as well change the whole game, you know?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder if Paragon levels would work better. So maybe 120 is max then forever, and then you have Paragon levels.
Right, but you would still need to make getting to 120 more interesting, I feel. Like, you would still need to have little incentives.
Yes, it doesn't really fix the problem, yeah. You're right. Because
the
problem isn't necessarily that the levels are getting too high, it's just that there's too many levels is the problem.
Right. Yeah, and it's just set up in a way where you just feel like you're really strong at the end of an expansion and the next expansion hits and you progressively get weaker, but you don't get anything new and fun. And I think it really hit hard in BFA because we lost the artifacts and they had all the cool active effects and all these abilities that felt really special. So it felt like we're getting worse and then we're losing the cool artifact and we're not getting any new talents in place of it. So we just feel weaker and it just doesn't psychologically feel good.
Yeah, I don't think the Paragon... I just read the commentary as well. No, Paragon levels suck. Lots of games do it that way, increasing a Paragon level cap instead of level cap, and it adds no sense of progression. Because, as we said, having Paragon levels doesn't fix the progression to the 120 in the first place, which is part of the problem, right? Where you're leveling, you're getting weaker, but you're not gaining anything. And that doesn't feel very nice.
Yeah, I imagine they want to tackle it two ways. One would be of like, more of a story thing where they want you to feel like you're doing the stories and you're learning something, and then you'll get a reward to feel like you didn't just slog through a story that you hated. But then I also imagine from a combat gameplay perspective, they want you to feel like you're getting stronger or that you've gained something meaningful. Like back in Warlords. Like Warlords had you got the talent at 100, but then you also got the Drainer perks along the way every few levels to make it seem like there was something you look forward to. Right now, there's just not really much to look forward to. And at least with Classic WoW, when you're leveling up, you're like, oh, every 2 levels, I got a new rank of something. Do I go back to the trainer now to get it? Like, oh, there's a new type of mount I can get. There's always, or, like, oh, I can train a new type of profession rank. Like, going from apprentice to journeyman. There's always some little thing you could get, which is not really present in this version of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to learn more about their plans for that. I think that
like
maybe
the different
it could be good for the long-term health. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I want to hear what kind of options that they have seriously considered, because I'm sure they have seriously considered certain alternatives and thrown some alternatives out the window. I would love to hear more ideas that they have to see what could be the most fun for us.
if we go in the Black Empire direction, or like, oh, N'Zoth is out from the ocean and bad things are happening, it could be a good time to do a leveling revamp. If we're not successful at saving the world this time, maybe it's a good time to reboot leveling and have us start over with this new system, because we're no longer these insanely powerful heroes. We're just
We're all
you
level
know
10 now.
yeah, we're all like, our N'Zoth took our powers and we're all level 10, and we
Yeah.
have to all level up and regain our strength.
Hey, that would actually be cool. That
Yeah.
could work. Yeah. I mean, if anyone can do it, it's N'Zoth, right? I think that would be awesome. Maybe not
Yeah,
level 10, but yeah.
so instead of starting from like level 120, you would be like, oh, you're starting from strength level 0, and when you go to this area, and then you have to gain more strength as you go through the special Black Empire zones. So like each expansion segment is its own little leveling capsule, and that could also hopefully maybe reduce the need from, oh, you have to quest in a bajillion zones to get to the content. I don't know.
I
I
just
like the
saw
idea.
I saw a couple
So go ahead.
comments in the chat. I don't mean like he's gonna put you down to level 10, so you have to level again, but more like,
Yeah.
so level 10 would be the new standard, right? So
Right.
you would
Yeah.
level from 1 to 10, and 10 is max level. I mean, 10 was extremely low. It would probably make more sense to have something like 50 or 60, but the idea of 120 not being a thing anymore, and story wise, it could kind of make sense that you just lost those levels somehow. You became weaker. You lost
Or
the
it's like,
fight.
like we lost the artifacts at the end of Legion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, artifact power was an important stat, and then that just went out the window. So it's like, maybe we became unstable too, or maybe when we actually lost for a change, so we're not powerful if we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
survive under the guise of N'Zoth, and we're not these badass heroes with the best weapons that everyone looks up to. We're sort of weak and recovering from our
Mm-hmm.
defeat, and now we need to regain more strength.
Because at the moment, like, we're kind of suffering with the levels because of the decisions that were made in the game over 10 years ago, right? I mean, even more than 10
Yeah.
years ago. Because of the way that the old talent system worked, you could have a point to put in your tree almost like every level. And so there was something to do. But nowadays, you get something, what is it, every 10 levels? 15 even?
15, and then you get nothing from 100 to 120. It just ends at 100.
And that's even more strange because that means the new expansion gives you nothing. And I didn't even think about that, but that's a good point. When I recently got boosted in Freehold. I wanted to level my, what is it, fifth alt or something. So I decided to do it in Freehold, and every level, like, sure, I'd get the ding and I'd get the, yellow golden color effect, but I'm not unlocking anything.
Right.
It's just another level.
Yeah, it's just like indicating, like, oh, 113, you're roughly a third through the story we want you to do. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll just keep turning quests in and hitting buttons. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we are kind of suffering because of that. I mean, we had the 5 level gap between from, was it Wrath Lich King to Cataclysm, and then Cataclysm to MOP. I think that was 5 levels each, but other than that, it's been 10 levels each time. And I think if they would redo it, they could make the levels a lot lower than that. If we're getting a talent every 15 levels, how many talent rows are there? Is it 6?
15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 100. There's 7 rows.
7 rows. So that would,
And
then level 10 would almost make sense to be max level then.
Yeah, and keep in mind that when you mentioned Cataclysm only having 5 levels, that was still under the old talent system, so you were still getting new things every, level to look forward to.
True.
And then in MOP, things were new and shiny, plus everyone was rolling a Pandaren, and I believe you would go back to your Sanctuary, Peak of Serenity, and train things every few levels.
Mm-hmm.
So that also had that sense of excitement that your character was getting stronger. And then they just really changed things up in moving away from Warlords to Legion. But yeah, also in the Q&A they had some interesting Transmog stuff. we learned a few things. They said first in the Q&A they said that they were going to let you hide your chest slot in an upcoming patch, and then they clarified that to say, oh, you can hide all slots except for pants.
Yeah.
So this is really cool if you know play a class like a demon hunter or an allied race that actually makes a big deal of tattoos like High Mountain, Lightforge, Nightborn, Maghar, Zandalari, and yeah, I think that's about it. So if you're any of those classes or races, you might want to show up the tattoos as part of your character concept, like a Lightforge and I actually wanting to show off their glowing light, or the Maghar trying to have a Blade Master aesthetic. And in an upcoming patch now you can.
I was actually really surprised to hear that. I didn't expect them to
Yeah.
hide everything.
Yeah, it seems like it always feels like a little too much, but I guess pants, or the, you can't hide
Yep.
pants.
I mean, because if
uh,
you can hide shirt, that means you'll see people in like female characters in just a bra, like
yeah,
right?
that seems kind of weird. Like I guess all the brows and are kind of decorative; they're not plain. So I guess it would still be as like a fashion statement. Like the Demon Hunter bra is like super elaborate with, I don't know, like red trim on it. It almost looks like I don't know, like
Oh,
like a tank top.
I haven't even
Yeah,
thought about that. I was just thinking of the human model since I play a human, and
yeah,
I feel like that would be weird.
yeah. I agree. It does seem a little weird, but I do see why they're doing it, and it does I think give their artists more flexibility to do chest and arm tattoos if they know that people now have the ability to show them off.
Yeah.
But
No,
I agree on
I
human.
agree with yeah, like with those kind of chest tattoos, it does feel nice that you should be able to show them off.
Yeah. Also, they did not give a timeline for this, but this was very popular on Wowhead. They said they wanted to look at all the transmog rules and see about loosening some of them. So
Mm-hmm.
especially with silly transmog. So I know there are things like fish. Some fish you can, like the island fish, you can transmog, but then older fish like the haunted herring you can't. There are frying pans. There are rolling pins. They said they want to look at those restrictions and see about loosening some of them, and that was extremely popular when I covered it on Wowhead. Like very popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's really interesting because there's a lot of very silly transmogs in the game, like the frying pan, the fish, and there's the other like the gardening tools from the garrison.
Yeah, there's shovels.
Yes.
There's I know, like, yeah, there's all sorts of spatulas. Like, I think there's one that even has fried eggs in it. There are chef's hats you can
Mm-hmm.
use. There's all sorts of funny things. The fish are the ones that come to mind to me the most, though, just because the island one you can, but then the older fish you can't. So to me, that's a clear, confusing, inconsistently applied rule there.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't mention holiday cosmetic items, but I'd be curious how that fits into it all because holiday cosmetic items you can only transmog during the holiday. And a lot of people are like, but this item looks really cool. Like, why can't I have my flower crown for the whole year? I want to celebrate spring. Or, why can't I have a witch hat? I play a warlock. I want to be this, evil
Yeah.
sorcerer.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if the restrictions on those could be loosened as well, because that could actually give people reasons to collect these things during the holidays. Because right now it's like, oh, well, it's this, whatever cosmetic thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there could be more incentive if it was a permanent transmog.
I just saw a comment in the chat that says you can already transmog the gardening stuff from Garrison. I didn't know that. In that case, that was my mistake. I thought they were
Yeah,
non-transmogable.
I think, yeah, but I mean, that's still a good example. It's like, how come you can transmog a pitchfork from the garrison, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't transmog a pitchfork from a quest?
Oh,
You know?
okay. In that case, that's probably
Yeah,
why then. I assumed you can't
yeah,
because I know that model isn't possible in a different item.
yeah, yeah. So it just seems very inconsistent
Mm-hmm.
as to items from different sources.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm all for fun. So if people can transmog into more fun things, I am completely okay with that.
Yeah, and I think when transmog first came into WoW, it was such a breath of fresh air, and everyone wanted to transmog and self-express themselves and share their item sets. And now I feel that people have sort of settled into a routine. And it's a less exciting thing. So maybe this will be a breath of fresh air to get people creating again, which would be cool.
Definitely. And then the topic of holiday items as well. Like, let's say it's summertime and you're showing off some of the wintertime holiday items, and then somebody sees it who may not know about it from before, and then maybe now they'll be looking forward to the winter holiday to get it themselves.
Yeah. Also, with Trial of Style, we've had a few events already, and maybe they were seeing that people were just transmogging into the same ensembles. They're like, okay, guys, we gotta shake things up here and get some more variety and self-expression going on. Too much paladin, judgment to tier 2, the purple version going on. But yeah, I hope that leads to more self-expression, and I have no problem with silly things being transmog, and would really like to see the holiday stuff as well. I'd also be curious if they would ever allow things like the legendary capes from Mop and how they had those really cool auras.
Yes.
I would love to see more interesting spell effects, just cosmetic, as well as legendaries that have interesting appearances. I think those would be cool to include as well.
Kind of like transmog in an enchant, if you could transmog the effect of an item. Because there's the there's the cloaks that you mentioned, and then there's also for example the headpiece.
The Mop challenge mode.
Yes, and also the headpiece for warlocks in what tier was it? Like the ones that brings out the wings.
Tier 6? Yeah, tier 6.
Is it tier 6? Yeah.
Having
yes, exactly. Having those also available for things like that would also be really cool.
Yeah. Also, if they could loosen the restrictions on items, either legendaries or the items that feed into legendaries. So, for example, we're talking about the Mop legendary capes, and that reminded me that the epic versions of the cape were also not eligible for transmog. And if you're making the Sulfuron hammer, the epic hammer you have to craft that goes into it also can't be transmogged. And it just seems like, and it's like we can't transmog Thunder Fury, but the rogues can transmog a version of Thunder Fury for their artifact weapon. Warglaives can transmog the Warglaives at this point. It just seemed like the lines are getting blurred, and it's like, what? Just let people transmog appearances. Like, just let people have fun.
I kind of agreed with the restrictions at the beginning because I thought the game would get too crazy, but now that we're used to it, I don't feel like it would even make that big of a difference. Like, people already have kind of crazy transmogs. So I don't think it is true that everyone would just transmog into the same thing.
Yeah, and there's so much variation now, especially with the artifact skins that were added, and how they're trying to have all the transmog sets in BFA look really different from place to place. Like, Dazarlor and the Darkshore Warfront are the same tier, but they have very different moods to them. It's not, it's like one is all Bonsomdi and the other is all Night Elf and Forsaken. So I think there is more variation, and even if people have the same sets, but some choose to, go bare chested while another is fully covered up, like that can even really change the mood of a heritage armor set that a lot of people wear.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So also in something we also learned last week in a similar vein to appearances or cosmetic effects are some new esports toys that we learned about. These are the long-awaited toys. We've known they were coming for a while, but we didn't really know what they did. There are 2 shop options, each for $10. One is a set of Alliance and Horde fireworks, and you plant them on an enemy corpse, and a firework appears. And there's lots of designs. It's not just like red sprinkles. It's like a hammer or an Alliance symbol or a Horde symbol. It's pretty cool. And it's also nice if you get one, you then you learn the other toy in the toy box, so it's like a 2-for-1 deal. And the thing which jogged my memory about Transmog was that the other toy is called the Transmorpher Beacon, and it transforms you into one of the old enemy bosses in WoW. And there are dozens you can turn into, and it's pretty cool. And you can also use this item, and it gives your party or raid the option to transform their appearances as well. And it just seems really it's really fun. A lot of people having a lot of fun with it. Mounting up on their mount, and they look like a boss, from Burning Crusade. I think when you also transform, you yell that boss's signature line.
Mm-hmm.
So you sort of get into the whole spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those are the esports toys, and if you're wondering, like, why are you calling them esport toys? 25% of the proceeds from the toy sales through October 15th will go towards the arena and mythic dungeon final prize pools.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an attempt at crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, and I believe Dota and other games have done this as well with a similar percentage range. I know 25% may not seem like a huge amount, but it's competitive with what other game companies do for these esports shop items.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope it does well. I hope we get more elaborate things in the future. Maybe a portion of your sub goes to esports, or I don't know,
Yeah.
some big. You can make an impact with even bigger ways to contribute.
Yeah, I understand at 25%, like you said, it's kind of like a standard number because that's what other companies have done as well. I think what I would have liked to see for this one, since it's the first time it's being done, I think at least, for
Mhm.
maybe a limited time, maybe, I don't know, maybe the first 2 months that they're out or something, that the percentage would be something a lot higher, maybe even 50%, and then that it goes down a bit later. I think that would have been cool because there's a lot of negativity around BFA in general, and having feeling that Blizzard wants to support esports and MDI would, or just esports. I guess MDI is also kind of esports. Seeing
Yeah.
seeing seeing Blizzard do something for esports, I think would mean a lot to a lot of people, and I think esports in WoW in general needs help compared to a lot of
It
other
could,
games.
yeah. It could also be. I know sometimes with charities it will be matching donations. Like if you donate in a certain period, a sponsor will match donations up to a certain amount. Uh, so sorry, Bright Plus typing on the notes. So perhaps it's like, oh, if you buy a toy during like, the MDI Cup weekend, Blizzard will, double Blizzard will match all the revenue made. So it's essentially
Oh, do
like,
they do things like
double.
that?
No, I'm just saying it would be cool if they did that. I'm just
I
thinking that,
agree.
yeah, I think that could be a cool thing. So it's like, oh,
Yes.
like buy
Well,
it during the
mm-hmm.
event, and it's like, we'll double the earnings towards the prize pool for every purchase made during the broadcast being live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree completely. That would actually be amazing if they could combine it together with, for example, the arena. The arenas are going on like almost weekly when the
Yeah.
cups are going on, and if maybe during those shows, if you get the toys, then the percentage goes up to maybe 50% or something. I think that would make a lot of people want to support esports.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people saying, "Oh, I bought this toy last month and I should have waited to buy it this other time," but I still think it would be a step in the right direction to
Mm-hmm.
be like, "Oh, like temporary bonus, like, quick, let's rise together." And then you have like a little counter
Mm-hmm.
on the esports stream being like, "This is how many toys we've sold," or like, "This is how much money you've raised during the stream."
Mm-hmm.
And then people love filling up, donation bars and incentives, thinking of, stuff like, awesome
Mm-hmm.
games done quick, how like everyone wants to hit that threshold. So
Yep.
if you try to incentivize that with toys, and also we're like, well, you're working towards this, but Blizzard is also going to put in more based on what you chip in with, then I think that could be interesting. But I'd like to see more of these in the future. Like, there's only so many toys you can think up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, we already did Alliance Horde, we already did disguises. What's next? Like a mount, a pet. I think it could be cool if you could say, with your sub, like, hey, I'd like some of my sub to go towards supporting esports. You may even have people that are not playing as frequently that like watching it saying, hey, I might, if my sub can go to esports, I might actually like keep it running for, a month of the season to
Yeah.
support my favorite streamers, even if I'm not logging on and playing the game, because I know that the money is supporting the thing I like.
Yep. No, I agree completely. And I think
So
with these toys, eventually the campaign ends, right? Because then it's time for the final
yeah,
prize.
October 15th, that's when
Yeah.
it ends.
And I guess at that point, none of the money goes towards esports. And I mean, obviously, the sales would also go down in general. So that is taken in consideration. But the fact that it has an ending in the first place makes me feel like there should be
Wait.
some times where it's a 50%. Or
So
do you think they'll just not be sold after that?
well, I was gonna say we've seen like the Blizzard Vault for those mounts. So it's like, was this a test run to say, okay, there's gonna be, seasonal esport toys that you only get during a certain period and that's it.
That's what
So
I mean, yeah, it's
yeah.
possible actually.
And then be like, oh my god, I have to buy this now or else I'll never get it again. And then you have to buy it before October 15th or else maybe it won't be around afterwards.
Maybe October 15th is when it stops going towards esports, but then you can still buy it until the end of the year. And then for the new year, the new esports year, they come up with something new. And then maybe this
Yeah.
goes away.
Yeah, we did talk previously on the show how there is something psychological where if you have something always on sale, people like there's too many choices and they sort of ignore it. But if you say you have to get this now or else, people will actually stop what they're doing and buy it. So that's why I think the esports toy could be limited duration, or else people would just be like, oh yeah, like I'll support it next year, or I'll buy it next year. So they want some sense of urgency with it, I think.
I mean, if they are going to make it limited, I hope that they stop selling it when the donations stop. So it doesn't
Yeah,
become a thing of like, yeah, we're going to sell it for 2 more months. If you still want it,
yeah,
all the money goes to us though. And
right.
yeah, if you don't buy it, you will lose out. And if you do buy it, esports is over. So you're not supporting anything other than us.
Oh, could it go to next year's prize pool?
It could,
Yeah.
but it was it mentioned specifically donations end October 15th?
Yeah, they say that the donations end on that date.
Okay. Hmm. I guess we'll see what they decide to do.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like Aegis has written down some subs,
Yes.
returning subs. Yeah. Sass isn't here, but Aegis is on top of it.
Thank you very much, Aegis. Yeah, we got Lincoln with the 15 months in a row. Thank you so much, Lincoln, for supporting Wowhead. And Swiggy with the same number of months, 15 as well. I think that it's kind of lining with how long I've been here on Wowhead. These are some of
Aw.
my boys. Thank you so
Yay.
much, guys, for supporting. And Ashley Bithia is also on the list. We did say thank you, but we'll say thank you again. Thank you so
Yep.
much for the 13 months.
Yeah.
Poggers. But yeah, speaking of
So,
campaigns, we had another kind of campaign going on in the last, when was it? On the 21st to the
yep.
24th of March. Blizzard had a welcome back weekend where all inactive accounts were given a free subscription in a way for those few days where you could play the game.
Yep. Right. This was a mixed bag because uh if you had BFA and you quit, you could come back and play BFA. But if you didn't have BFA, you couldn't play BFA. Like you could log on and do the trial content, but you couldn't access the new zones. So
Mm-hmm.
the wording was a bit misleading, and I know there are lots of people that bought BFA that have quit. So I'm not complaining about those. Like those people were fine, but if you played WoW 3 years ago and you heard Free Weekend, you might be surprised to realize that no, you can't actually do
Do
the
anything.
current
Mm-hmm.
content.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a bunch of articles on Wowhead, like we did a what class is easy for the welcome back weekend, what's some solo content you can jump into. And we got tons of replies from people saying, thanks, but I don't have BFA. Like, what can I do that's not BFA?
Mm.
And we actually didn't see much of a traffic bump on the site. We did for the Legion welcome back weekend, but not really for this one, which to me shows that it was not really a net gain of players that weekend because there were people were not really doing stuff that required them to look up Wowhead. People were doing introductory quests. They'd be on Wowhead, looking for NPC turn-ins or how to, what are the best talents, for their easy hunter they're coming back and playing. But we didn't really see a big gain for that sort of stuff like we have in the past. So I'm not sure how successful it was. I feel like maybe if they let you play BFA, it would be more exciting. It's super weird when all the marketing is like Kultiris and Zandalar, and then you log on and you're like, oh, I can't see any of this. How
Yeah.
exciting.
It's interesting that you mentioned compared to the past. So that means in the past, when there's been welcome back weekends like this, you've seen more success in them?
Yeah, well, there was only one.
Okay.
And it was done in the pre-patch leading up to Legion, the pre-patch leading up to BFA, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's when Legion was discounted, or if you, it was in that weird period where I think if you bought the base game, Legion was part of it. So I think a lot of people were
Okay.
coming back in preparation for BFA. They were cool buying the latest version of the expansion, and people were jumping into the game. But now it's like you just had a bunch of people that I think weren't playing BFA, um didn't know where to start, were confused when they logged on that they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't really access BFA, and meanwhile all the BFA marketing is, help the Kultirans and help the
Yeah.
Zandalar, but there's nothing really related to that you can do on a trial account.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was sort of a very kind of weird, disjointed experience if you quit a while back.
I guess it's a little bit complicated because how would you make people have access to Zandalari trolls, for example?
Well, if you let them play BFA, you could like plop them down in the capital city so they at least can
Can
explore the
see them.
story and meet Talanji, but like you couldn't do any of that
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't have BFA. Like it's just super weird to talk
Mm-hmm.
about, helping allies, but you can't even like visit their city or talk to their leaders.
That's a good point. So you don't necessarily have to play your own allied race, but you could at least see the game and experience it. Yeah, they could have made BFA available. I mean, if you're level, let's say 110, you haven't played since Legion, and you want to experience the BFA quest lines, you could do that, and you just won't get any experience. Like that, that would also work.
Right. And it could also, that could actually be a way to get people converting into subscribers, like, oh, I played hard for the weekend, I got through, I got through Vol'dun, I met these cute, furry
Yeah.
Volpera,
Mm-hmm.
I got through Nazmir, and oh, I only got halfway through Zuldazar, will Rastakhan live? And oh no, my free time's up,
Yeah.
I'm gonna subscribe for the month to see
It's
what
actually a very good
happens.
point. Yeah, I agree completely. Because if you can,
Yeah.
if you come in, it's like, oh, the game is free to play, but actually, if I want to play, I have to pay this. No, I agree completely. If they had access to BFA, then at least they could start the quest lines, and then that might interest them or interest people, spark some kind of interest in continuing the quest line. And as long as you don't really gain an experience because your account is obviously not BFA account, I
Right.
don't really see the problem.
Yeah. So I felt like the execution of this was not really great.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we did the Wowhead guides, and a lot of people were asking for other suggestions, or yeah, we just got a lot of responses from people being like, "Oh, like why don't you talk about more advanced stuff?" And it's like, man, this isn't. I think the people reading the article were people on Wowhead that check Wowhead every day, which wasn't the target audience.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like it could have been, they need to refine this. I think they've only
Mm-hmm.
had one welcome back weekend before, so the format could be more refined.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hopefully, I
Hopefully they
think if
get
they
the
get
right
some,
feedback so they can think about that for next time.
yeah, or like maybe if they do one with Rise of Ashara, they could do something to the effect where, like you can't see Najatar, but if you didn't buy BFA, you could maybe do some of Kulturis and Zandalar just to see the new zones and be like, oh wow, the new races are awesome,
Mm-hmm.
and like the architecture of WoW keeps getting better, and
Mm-hmm.
the quests are more sophisticated. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think this one was a. I don't think this one was a big success, especially because they were tying it into allied races, and I was like, well, someone with a trial account is not going to unlock an allied race in 3 days,
No,
even if they put down money and start
exactly. That's
playing
yeah,
now. Like you're sort of selling a goal they can't reach, and people
yeah.
want to feel like they can accomplish something when they play the game, that they've earned something.
Because that's what I was thinking. Like, if you only have a few days, there's no way that you'll, even if they gave BFA access, it's not
Yeah.
like you'd have the allied race access, right? But it's a good point, though. If you do go to the zones, at least you get to see the different races, and then maybe you stumble upon people who are those races as well. So in that way, you get to see things. But yeah, the way that it was
Yeah.
done now seems like it was completely pointless. Who's anyone who never bought BFA?
If they advertised it like, Jaina is back, and we finally helped the Zandalari. Like that could have been a better hook because Jaina was kind of absent for a few expansions. So instead of being like, oh, play a cool Tyranny, and it's like, well, you can't really do that. But if you did take a break for a few years, you actually might be curious what happened to Jaina, or be like, oh, we finally see the Zandalari Empire. That's cool too. But yeah,
well, I guess when they make these kind of marketing things, they have to they have to consider.
Through my mouse. There we go.
I guess they have to consider the fact that maybe some people don't even know anything about the lore, so they don't know any characters at all. They just know the playability of things. So saying that you can play an allied race makes more sense to those people, but then when you can't play them, it's a bit like
that's why I think
if they
just went bigger and they were just like, see Jaina, see Zandalari, that just seems better to me than being like, oh, it just seems so like, why would you say see tourists if you can't see them? I agree. Also, this was in the fine print of the Welcome Back weekend, so you had to read the fine print to realize that you only had the trial experience if you didn't have BFA. So this all just could have been a lot clearer. Hopefully they'll improve on it for the future. I don't know if it was meant to be something else, but then, with the recent layoffs, if, I don't know, maybe the people working on the tech or the program or the messaging, were laid off and they were scrambling. But hopefully they can learn from the data they've gathered from these past events and make it better. The Q&A did have a kind of rambling answer about metrics they use to determine if people are happy with the game. And they were talking about things like, how many days do you log in and how frequently do you play? So if they see that the metrics didn't really go up for the Welcome Back weekend, maybe that could be a sign that they need to, change things up. Yeah, do things different to hook people into the game if that's the whole point of the weekend.
I'm sure they could see how long people were logged in as well. So if people were just logged in for half an hour and then they quit, then that probably means, well, maybe this person didn't have much to do. And maybe if you compare the people who had BFA and didn't have BFA, and it's a huge difference, then maybe that could also make them think about giving access to BFA, at least the zones, so that people can see the new worlds. That would be a good idea.
I also feel like if you quit in Legion, maybe you quit when your artifact weapon was like kind of cool, and if you log in and it's BFA, but you can't play BFA because you don't have BFA, and then your artifact weapon, all the cool abilities are gone, you're gonna be like, oh,
this sucks. Yeah.
I feel worse. Like I feel shitty. Like this isn't fun. So it definitely, maybe they were doing this to get data on the leveling experience or the confusion people felt when they logged in. But yeah, it was definitely kind of a weird holiday. Which sort of brings us to our next topic of maybe why the traffic didn't seem to increase, because lots of people got banned also that weekend. So maybe the Welcome Back game got balanced out by people unable to play the game. I'm sure many of you know, players were banned who exploited a bug with the drought of 10 lands for massive experience gains, getting a stack, but then breaking them down into smaller stacks and consuming them a certain way. This was clearly an obvious bug. I mean, who buys a 20 stack of potions and then like I don't know, arranges them? It doesn't really make sense. And there are some interesting implications of that. If you do anything with esports like PvP or MDI, I believe if your ban was longer than 48 hours, that could hurt your eligibility. Most of the bans were pretty short, somewhere in the 48-hour range, but some went up to a month, which could then actually hurt the early part of Crucible of Storms raid progression in mid-April. And that led to a lot of discussion. Go ahead.
I was going to just mention what you said again, make it super clear So this potion, in case you don't know, it gives 10% experience buff. And usually you can only use one. If you pop another one, it replaces the one that you already have. And what happened during this bug was that if you would click on these potions one at a time as separate stacks from each other, you would stack all those experience buffs on top of each other. So you could essentially have like a 300 experience boost just by spamming a lot of them. Or I think there was a limit of like 20 of them or something like that.
Yeah, but that's still intense.
Yeah,
it wasn't just like, oh, oops, I double clicked on this. It's like, oh, I did this 20 times.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if it was that you could just click it, I guess it could be argued like, oh, like maybe you thought the mechanic just changed. But the fact that it's so specific that you had to split it up and then click it in that kind of ordering, I feel like that should kind of raise an alarm. Like, okay, like this is probably not intentional. So people did this and they would level through Freehold, get boosted, and they would go from level 110 to 120 in like, I don't know, half an hour or something. And yeah, people got banned for it. That's what happened.
And there was some we learned about it from, people sharing reports. Blizzard did not post anything on this officially. And because there was a lot of bans, including, people that are on Twitch and YouTube doing it, and then their audiences learned about it and it spread, there was a lot of, people being upset that, fans, someone has a lot of fans, and then people are upset that they get in trouble and they feel bad for their friend. But the conversation, for whatever reason, was shifting from people doing the obvious exploit to how Blizzard should have communicated it, which was interesting because Blizzard never really tweets stuff like this out. Usually, when they fix bugs, they don't even acknowledge that they're fixed. In the hot fixes, they don't want to, I guess, encourage people to see if it's really fixed for themselves. But there was a really big discussion this time that Blizzard should have, tweeted it out that they were fixing it or have addressed concerns. But it's really a slippery slope, and I'm not sure that would have been the best reply. Plus, I mean, they've not really done that for over a decade, but suddenly it was, an issue now. I think if they did tweet, it would lead to a strange precedent where when there was more exploits, if people would say, oh, well, Blizzard tweeted about this other one, but not about this one, so this means that it's not as bad, so I can get away with it. And then you wouldn't want Blizzard rushing to tweet something before it was fixed, because then you might just get people trolling to do the exploit even more, which creates more of a mess and potential bans. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, this was a really obvious thing. I think just the obvious thing is, don't take advantage of the bug. Obviously, if you opened up a ticket, it would be good to get a reply on it, but it didn't seem like a gray area thing. It seemed very obvious that this was not intended.
I think I kind of agree with. I mean, I don't know. I may not know everything that's been tweeted out, but I don't feel like Blizzard would tweet out a bug, especially before it's fixed as well. So I'm not sure why people were expecting a tweet. But I do hope, I don't know, but I do hope that if people did send tickets, that GMs would at least tell them to not do it. Obviously, I don't know if GMs did do that, or if they just ignored them, or if they said, I don't know. But I feel like the fact that you had to set it up with the way of the stacking, like kind of shows that it's not meant to be.
Yeah, like, can you picture this, like an email to Blizzard, like, hi, Blizzard, I bought this stack of potions, and then I broke them down into 20 stacks of one each, and then I consume them for, like, a, 300% experience gain. Like, should I do this or not? Like, it just sounds so silly when you write it out. It's like, yeah, you're probably not meant to do that.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. And in terms, I don't think the characters that got boosted like that got rolled back, but I might be mistaken.
No. I don't know if they had the tech to roll them back, but yeah, I don't think they did.
Wait, why would they not have the tech? They've rolled back in the past, haven't they?
I'm not sure if they did, but I haven't heard anyone doing it. So a lot of people were just like, a lot of people with the ban, they're like, yeah, okay, I did the wrong thing, but my character didn't get rolled back, so I saved hours, so it was still kind of worth it in the end.
Yeah, I do feel like the characters should have been rolled back. I think that's what's happened in the past when something has been bug abused, but I don't know. I mean, sure, like at the end of the day, it's like it's Blizzard's fault for making a bug, right? But that's still the definition of an exploit, to abuse the fact that there is a bug. So, and I think everyone who did get banned, they know that they did something wrong. Like I don't think anyone kind of is like, yeah, I didn't do anything wrong, but I got punished. Uh,
Right.
so yeah, should Blizzard have tweeted? I don't think so. Should GMs have responded to tickets? Yes, I hope that they did. I don't know if they did. I did not submit a ticket to ask, so I
Right.
don't know.
It could also be an issue where someone was like, oh, like the GM said, it's also like, oh, the GM again replied to my bug quickly, but the GM didn't reply to your bug, so, this bug must be okay to
Mm-hmm.
do. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just gets really slippery if they just you can't reply to everyone, and if something is done before it's fixed or its communication is prone to misinterpretation, you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to make something worse than it already is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there also is the issue where I kind of agree with this that there are different types of exploits in the game. For example, there was a cauldron bug with the alchemy item, or like we had the thing with the Darkshire Warfronts or power leveling in island expeditions, and it seems that sometimes the punishments are unevenly applied, or the people who abuse the cauldron bug now have billions of potions and everything's fine for them. So I do see that there's a sense that some things are unevenly handled.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a blue post would be good, being like, this is the process of how we research bans, and these are some things we've done in the past, and these are generally the range, and these are things we consider, worse. But like, don't just maybe trying to explain and lay things out without really getting into one specific example.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the idea is that like you shouldn't be looking to exploit things that are bugs in the first place, because there's always a risk you could be, apprehended.
Mm-hmm. I do you know how long this bug was in the game? Because I think that was another problem, that it was live for so long, like over 24 hours of it being public. And that's also why some people assume that there's nothing wrong with it, because it's still working, kind of.
Yeah, I think it was 48 hours. A lot of people knew about it. It took 48 hours to fix it.
Mm,
But on the other hand, I mean, it's hard for Blizzard to fix things instantly.
mm,
Like they can't shut down a server, or maybe it was a very complicated uh thing to fix. I mean, going back to classic WoW, like some of the bugs from the demo, they're talking about months later how they're finally now sorting out, getting to the bottom of things. So
mm.
it could be that like they couldn't have fixed it quickly, or what were they meant to do? Just remove the experience potion from the vendor and everyone in the game? That would also create
I mean, I
confusion.
guess they could just disable it. I mean, yeah, I guess that could confuse people if they weren't ready for it and didn't know about the bug, but
Right. But then you
yeah.
have people coming back for the patch that are trying to level their, Kultirans normally, that are like, why don't I have this experience potion? This game has a weird experience for me. So it feels like no one can really win from
Mm,
this.
hmm.
Um
Yeah,
so
I'm not sure.
yeah.
If they could stop the potion from being clickable or something, like you can't use it, like you can't use this right now, maybe, but then that could possibly ruin a lot of regular people's way of playing the game. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
mean,
it's a bit of a awkward
yeah.
situation.
Like I definitely noticed some increased traffic to that page on Wowhead while the exploit was active, but it wasn't like the number one page on Wowhead by a mile. Like there were other people that were using our leveling guides and our class guides and our allied race guides that were, clearly not using the experience potion because they were looking up quests and leveling tips.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was definitely I think a lot of people used it, but it wasn't, the majority of the player base all using the potions. And I think if they try to do something weird with the potion, it could have impacted the experience for more people. But yeah, I think people also need to realize how long some stuff takes to fix. Like some fixes you can't just apply in a day, or they could be, you can't just say we're gonna change how this potion works. What happens if you break how other stacked potions work, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have like 10 more bugs in the game now with alchemy potions doing the wrong thing, or
Mm-hmm.
some other potion acting weird.
Mm-hmm. I see some comments in the chat. Somebody, for example, saying problem with Twitter is that it's one, Twitter only, two, English only. They would have to do it inbound a client or something so that it can reach everyone, not English only. But like, imagine that as well. Like, imagine getting a message about like, don't use experience potion this way because it's currently
Yeah,
bugged. Like,
everyone's gonna do that.
it's
Yeah.
then the chances are that a lot of people will do it who weren't even
Yeah.
aware of it, you know, and
Right.
they might.
Or they'll try to figure out why it happened to them, and they'll be like, oh, well, if this is being fixed, like, maybe this other item that's similar is buggy too. Let me see if I can find another bug that Blizzard doesn't know about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they could do a message of like, uh, by the way, just a reminder: abusing bugs in the game is
Yeah.
bannable or something. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's. I feel like it's weird to just message people, message everyone while something is still wrong, to let them know that something is wrong and can be abused.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's been like psychological studies that sort of thing just like encourages people to exploit things more.
I think so. Like
Um,
people will try it out. Like they might do like half a level to see like, you know, half a level is okay, right? It's not so bad or something like
right.
it'll just make more people try it.
Yeah. Uh, and like even looking at the Dark Shore, the Ibis bug with the loot, it's like, I mean, how many people are like, oh, I did it once versus like I did it 20 times, and it's
Mhm.
like, like then I'm pretty sure like as more people posted about it on Reddit and comment pages or streams, then it kept spreading and spreading. And imagine something on BattleNet that everyone sees in all language, like that would just raise interest in poking holes at the exploit through the roof.
Mhm. Cuz
And Blizzard doesn't really like sites that share exploits. They don't really like
mhm.
people linking to it, those sorts of things. So I'm pretty sure they don't want to encourage that culture, or uh let new players know, hey, you can exploit the game. Like, does this sound cool? Like, you can go elsewhere to learn more about exploits. I feel that they
Yeah.
don't really want to shine a spotlight on that sort of thing.
I I another idea in the chat was that they should have, instead of banning people, roll them back. I honestly, I think the rollback would be a harsher punishment than a few days ban. So I kind of agree with that, because that means if they did it, at least they wouldn't still be rewarded for getting it done in the first
Yeah,
place.
I just wonder if they don't have the tech to roll people back.
I mean, in the world
Yeah,
first races in the past, they used to roll people back when they abused.
they did they? I mean, sorry, you mean leveling? I was thinking roll first, like
Oh,
rating.
yeah, yeah, no,
Um,
leveling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if stuff has changed since then, if that's harder to do now, or maybe they were thinking of doing that, but their rollback button broke. But I mean, I know that they can remove loot
Yeah.
that you shouldn't have earned.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know about rolling back the character, but it seems to make sense, because even if someone gets a ban for 48 hours, but they leveled 3 characters in that period, that's like 3 boosts or $180. So it's like, okay, I'll take the 2-day ban, and I'll
Yeah,
get my
exactly.
suite of
Mm-hmm.
essentially boosted characters.
I just saw comments in the chat as well. Who, agreed. Leveling is so boring. I'd take 2 days off the game happily. Like it's.
Right.
I feel like the rollback is actually more harsh, and maybe that should have been the punishment in the first place.
Yeah, going back to the leveling thing at the Q&A, I mean, this could also be a wake-up sign for Blizzard that, so many people wanted to exploit because they wanted to be max level, and they thought that the leveling didn't really have any purpose to it. So maybe they can learn from this, and as they read through all the trolling, like actually read through the good parts that are like, I really wanted to get to XYZ in game, and leveling was so boring because my character just feels, dead, and I don't get anything. It's like, okay, well, if there's a clear problem how people want to skip the leveling, how can we actually make people want to level and have it feel meaningful again?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's something Blizzard can learn from it. Maybe that's something productive out of this whole mess.
Mm-hmm. I think most people who got a ban, they did take it fine. Like they knew that
Yeah.
they did something that was probably wrong. So I don't think there's a people who are complaining that they shouldn't have been banned, but I think most of the complaints are just towards Blizzard being more informative, but I feel like it's such a sensitive thing to be informative about before it's fixed. So I don't know.
Yeah, and then you have people that are, just upset with the state of BFA, and maybe, one of their friends got a ban, or, a streamer they like got a ban, or like someone on Reddit they follow got a ban. And it's just like, it feels very cathartic to just get angry at someone you think should have been tweeting at Blizzard, even if it's like not their job. Like, I saw some people being like, oh, Lore should have tweeted. It's like, he does like global management, he doesn't do tweets. So I don't know. It just seems like there was some valid concerns about how do you be more consistent with bans, or what's the right way to punish people. But then there was also a lot of noise where people were just using it as a valve to say they didn't like BFA and certain employees, which was not really related to the topic, I felt. But yeah, on another topic that was cool but also got some artistic discussion in a mixed bag, right before the show we had the Jaina statue go on pre-order sale. I don't know if you have this up on the screen, but
Getting it up.
Blizzard showed this at BlizzCon 2018. I actually made a little video of it. It was super popular. And the pre-order is now up on sale for $350. And she's 18 inches tall, so 1.5 feet. She's got her BFA appearance with her staff. The water at her feet is her water elemental she's standing on. She looks really cool, but there was a lot of heated discussion today because her face does not resemble the kind of more anime Jaina we are used to seeing in the recent cinematics. So while everyone was really cool about the statue in the fall, now that we've seen Jaina's face everywhere on boss fights and cinematics, people are saying, oh, she looks kind of different. She looks angrier. I don't know. It's interesting. I still think it's cool. I already got it for pre-order. I think maybe the lighting used in the shots makes Jaina look older or angrier than she is. Because this like super zoomed in on her face and harsh lighting. So I think that could be contributing to it. But I still think it's a cute statue. I'll be getting it. We're also discussing this before the show. Maybe the statue has like really dramatic effects, like big lips up close, because in your office it will be like kind of far away and the details still need to come through. So like maybe close up it looks weird, but far away it looks fine. I don't know. Because when I took the video far away at BlizzCon, everyone loved her, and now when they see the close up, they're like, ah, she's scary.
Yeah, I don't know. I think compared to the cinematic, her mouth is definitely bigger, her eyes are smaller, and I guess it's kind of like what you said. It's in the cinematics we have a more sort of anime Jaina, and the statue is taking the approach of a more realistic human being Jaina, and she also has a very serious face. I mean, there's nothing wrong with serious though. I mean, Jaina does have very serious faces in the cinematics too, but they're cuter, right? Like they're more of a sort of anime style cute, angry.
Like she has really big eyes, and it's almost like in her in-game model, her eye is almost as big as her mouth, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And her eyes are very big and they're sparkly, and a lot of the art has her eyes that have like pastel blue magical hints in them. So, but it's like, in reality, she is a middle-aged lady. She's the age, she could be like Anduin's mom, she's his aunt. And she is a general, like a military leader, so she is seeing
she's
some
meant to be mature,
serious stuff. Yeah, and I think it's also really hard to do human
in reality. In real life.
Yeah. It's also a lot of the statues we've seen with WoW, they're very fantastical. So it's like, here's Sourfang, an orc, or Garrosh, an orc, or Illidan, a demon, or Sylvanas, who is decaying, and none of these statues, it's like, well, this is just like a human lady who's alive and healthy. So I think that when you start trying to do something that looks realistic and isn't 100% fantasy, then people might be like, oh, this looks sort of too ordinary, and then they fixate on the lips or the eyes. While with Illidan, you're just like, wow, he looks so out of this world. You don't really notice as much if if something looks a little off in his calibrations in his proportions.
Yeah, I think people just started loving the whole Jaina image that we've had in the cinematics. Like, I don't think we've seen such a animated character that much animated in a very, very, very cutesy way, reminding us a lot of anime, and it almost feels like you could find that character in a Disney movie, you know?
Yeah, Elsa, Frozen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, like Frozen. So I think because of this, people have a sort of anime image of Jaina, and then you look at the statue, and that's not anime at all. It's a lot more realistic. She looks like a mature woman, which she is technically. But in the cinematics, she looks like, you know, she could be 20, or maybe even a bit younger. I don't know. So it's I understand people's feelings about how it doesn't feel like Jaina anymore, but I also understand why the artist went for that kind of approach. I don't know who makes the decision of it, of course, and the statue that we saw last BlizzCon does look the same, so it's not like it's a completely new model. It's a model that was used. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the statue itself does look really cool. The face does feel a bit off, but I don't know. Is it a problem?
Yeah.
Maybe when you actually see it, it feels a little bit different.
Yeah, so two things I was going to say is that some of the art of Jaina has her with her hood up, like the limited edition print from January. And I guess they could have gone with the hood and then the eyes glaring out, but I think that would look really weird with shadows, and you would hardly see her face with the hood casting this shadow on
I think
top
it's
of
better
it.
without the hood for sure.
So then you have it without the hood, and then I know some people are like, oh, you know, her skin looks very plasticky close up, but we're not really used to seeing humans as statues. A lot of the characters we've seen are fantastical, and they have, you know, weird textures. They don't just have a skin tone. It's like, well, Sylvanas is, you know, decaying skin, and Illidan is demon, and Greymane is fur. So we maybe just haven't seen just, you know, generic human skin that doesn't have like weird modifications or scales or textures on it on a statue recently. And I know the Overwatch statues, which are more, you know, traditional humans, they do feel very kind of like shiny and slick because it's just, oh, look, they're in bodysuits and they just have clear skin. So I don't know. I do think that the statue still is cool. I also say in general, like when people are collecting figurines or dolls, there's not a lot of middle-aged women in general being represented, especially serious middle-aged women. So like I have all these dolls, but you know, they're cute, but they're, you know, they're fashion teenagers. It's not like here's, you know, the mother that is not taking any shit. So I just think that having the representation of a woman that's middle-aged and serious is always gonna have people going, wow, like I don't usually see her in a movie poster or, you know, collectibles. Like she looks different. You know, why is this making me feel different? Why, you know, she doesn't remind me of other things I, you know, can buy normally. But I think she's cool. I bought her. I think that if you put her on your desk, you know, 5-6 feet away, she'll look great. If you stare at her 2 inches away, like the pictures, then she might look a little weird, like, you know, stage makeup exaggerating things. But I think we have other problems if you want to, you know, like lean into your Jaina statue and start talking to her that close. That close.
How big is the whole statue?
It is 18 inches, which is 45 centimeters tall.
Okay.
So
that's pretty big.
Yeah. Like I don't know what. Let me see what the if the website gives a comparison of what the other ones
Comment in the chat. Leans close. I love you, Jaina.
Exactly. Like, so Illidan is 24 inches, and Sylvanas is 18.
Were those limited statues?
These are still on sale.
Okay.
But yeah, they've had statues go off. Yeah, you could get them. You could put Jaina and Sylvanas next to each other.
Are they the same style?
Yeah, kind of, I would say.
That's cool.
But yeah, like looking at Sylvanas, she doesn't really look like her Warbringer's art either. It's just that, you know, her skin is this weird shade of purple and her eyes are red, so she doesn't look like a normal human to begin with.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
But, you know, with Jaina, you're like, oh, you know, she sort of looks like a picture of my mom, but she's a statue, so it's like she looks real, but she's not 100% real looking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you could put Jaina and Sylvanas next to each other and have them be like, oh, I don't like you, I don't like you, just have them kind of glaring at each other. uh, yeah, I would say if anything, I would just try to have more of like a magical sparkle in her eyes because that's something I've seen across all artwork, even the serious artwork. But
Yeah, I
I
feel
still
like her
think
eyes
it's
could have been a
beautiful.
bit bigger. A
Yeah,
little bit bigger.
yeah, because like I mean, even in the BlizzCon art that I'm staring at, I finally put the artwork up behind. I've got art of Jaina here and here.
Mm-hmm.
It's less anime, but her eyes are still big and
Mm-hmm.
glowing.
Mm-hmm.
So something they've done different eye color, like the Sylvana statue has, I think, slightly bigger eyes with the red pupils in them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, I think I'm just staring at the artwork. I think looking at this 2017 artwork, her eyebrows were more blonde, and it looks a little weird how she's got these kind of white speckled eyebrows. Uh,
Yeah. That might again
like
be the photo and lighting, but yes, I
yeah,
noticed that too.
yeah. I mean, when you see the BlizzCon statue from November, when you see the picture of it, it sort of blends away. You don't see the white and black speckles
Mm-hmm.
from several feet away.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just that the picture was taken, you know, too close up. Like
Yeah.
if you look at the one, even with the zoom in of the corset, you're starting to see all the molding of her corset, and that's really cool. But that's something I didn't realize at BlizzCon.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to show really harsh lighting to show every dip and bump in the shadow. Like you can see that the belt is textured.
Mm-hmm.
That you know, you can see all the little ripples in her armor and her skirt, which I didn't again realize at BlizzCon. Like you can even see her shoulder piece has a dent in it.
Mm-hmm.
So all the details are really cool, but I think that when you put the character far away, you're not going to see all these details to the same extent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I just think I do think I think that it could maybe have been a little different, but a lot of people have forgotten that, you know, Jaina is you know, a very angry, driven, serious, not cutesy character at this point. She's been
Yeah.
through a lot of shit, and if they did take her anime face and put her on a statue, people would be like, oh man, you know, everyone is so realistic and Jaina looks like an anime figurine I could buy anywhere and dress up. So it's like you can't really win. But yeah, I will be trying to get some of these for Wowhead giveaways. Not sure if I'll be successful, but we have given away Sylvanas and Illidan before, so I hope this means we can give away some Jaina. And I'm also curious if this means we will get an Ashara statue at some point if Sylvanas and Jaina are Warbringers,
Mm-hmm.
and you know Ashara is the third Warbringer. It would be cool if we did, but I can also see that Ashara maybe isn't big enough to get
Important
this
enough.
because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even outside of BFA, Jaina and Sylvanas have big roles, while
Yeah.
Ashara is not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will get the statue. I'm trying to put it in one of the taller bookcases here because I don't want our little cat friend to be attacking Jaina.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll put her at the top shelf, away from the desk, so we can't, you know, reach up and get it.
That sounds like a good plan. Make it Bright Paw safe.
Yeah. I can also get little necklaces and charms because she's holding the necklace in her hand, and I could get little charms and I don't know, put like a ring on her hand and just use her as a little jewelry holder. That could be cool.
Yeah, that's actually
Yeah.
a good point. A jewelry
Yeah.
holder. But yeah,
Yeah.
speaking of art, we actually have some other kind of art to show you guys. There were
Yeah.
some really interesting, amazing art done by people who play Sims 4 of all games.
Yeah, this the Booty Bay image was shared on Reddit a few days ago, and then we dug into the artist's YouTube. The name is Sati Sim, and they also had speed builds up of Dalaran and the Dark Moon Fair, and this is really amazing detailed work. Like all the interior of the buildings were there. Dalaran has things like the Dalaran sewers and the Mage Order Hall present. Booty Bay. You can see in the video how they're constructing all the little fishing nets and pictures that go on the walls of the inns. It's really, really amazing technical display, and I believe the assets are available to download, so you can use them yourself as well.
It looks really amazing.
Yeah.
So how do they do this? Like, can you draw your own things in Sims 4 and then you put it in the game? Is that how it works?
I guess they use different elements and they put them together in ways that eventually replicate WoW. Like if you look at the Dark Moon Fair thing, it's basically constructing like circles and then roofs that have certain shapes, and then you change the colors and tint them. And you're like, oh, that's kind of a Dark Moon Fair tent. But yeah, I'm not super familiar with this all, but it does seem like me. I think they have custom elements, and then they have to arrange them in a certain way. So it's still really painstaking to arrange them all just so. But yeah, I don't know too much about the game. I just saw this. I was like, wow, this is so cool.
It does look really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome artist making those. I love seeing different cities and places being made in different games. Like I remember when I saw Stormwind for the first time in Minecraft. That was also amazing.
That's what this reminded me of. I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of similar. I think they might tackle Stormwind or something with Goldshire next, so that's cool.
Okay.
But yeah, I know they were really happy to see their work on Wowhead, and they were talking about doing more WoW themed zones in the future. So if you have any ideas what you'd like the artists to do next, definitely let them know. I think that Stormwind and Argrimmar could be interesting.
Definitely.
I'd love to see a Darnassus as well, because the architecture is so cool, and you could do fun stuff with the trees and the water and all the bridges.
That's true.
Yeah, and that could be nostalgia. Any other cities that could be interesting? I guess all the goblin ones are kind of fun as well, with all the gadgets they have. But I mean, I think Booty Bay is the best one they did out of the lot. They could do something with Karazhan. That could be cool, with all the towers.
Yeah, actually, that's a good one.
Yeah.
What else can they do? I'm trying to think of cool places in the game, but like usually when I think of
they could do Shattrath. That's another city. The mob cities are really detailed, like we were talking about a few weeks ago with portals. Yeah, that could be really cool with all like the gold detailing. And they could do the fun staircases. I feel like Shattrath would work well because it has lots of little areas, so you could have fun doing all the stalls, and then the elevator lifts, and then the really raised up suspended areas with the Aldor and the islands that are floating. I think that could be good.
Yeah, that could be really cool. Did you say they're working on the next one already?
Yeah, they were encouraged by all the things. Bright Pond, no.
Yeah, I just read Theramore. And Suramar, yes.
Suramar would be amazing. Yeah. Theramore, I feel like that would be a little too small to do, but I mean, obviously for sentimental reasons.
That's what I was thinking as well, especially with Jaina being here and everything.
Parts of Silver Moon could be fun. Undercity would be tough because it's underground.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe you could do something with all like the peaks in Silver Moon. I like that idea. Yeah, Dazara Lore would be fun with all the stairs. That would be pretty crazy.
That's actually a good one too, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I look forward to seeing more. And I actually like seeing the speed builds because you actually see the UI, how it's moving around. So you're like, oh wow, like they just did 12 of these crazy buildings and it went from looking like a circle to an actual house. Like, how did they do that? And I don't know. It's sort of soothing to watch these sped up building videos.
Yeah, it's like a yeah, it's a satisfying feeling seeing it
Yeah,
come
satisfying.
together. Yes, I like
Yeah,
it. I tend to watch
yeah,
videos like that on like Twitter feeds as well. When something is being created, it could be a piece of clothing being sewn or anything. When you see the process of it getting together, it's a really good feeling. I think that's why a
yeah.
lot
Or
of
even
people also
like
loved watching Bob Ross.
yeah, or even cooking. How it's like,
Yes.
oh, here's a potato, and then they just cut it, and all of a sudden it's like this beautiful thing at the end.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, now I'm hungry. Like I
Mhm.
want the finished version.
Mhm.
Um, we
Indeed.
also have another art thing going on. Every
Mhm.
month we do an artist corner on Wowhead. And this month it's the art of Pantarius, who does very detailed sculptures of especially of forums related to druids, so different artifact druid forums, Anzu, Moonkin form, and yeah, just check them out this week. We're giving away amount for people that comment and participate in the giveaway. It's a little expensive and difficult to send over, a detailed,
Yeah.
painstaking moonskin sculpture, but they do have an Etsy shop, so do check that out. We love supporting artists in the community, and we do try to work in people that do physical art. So we try to rotate between digital art and maybe people that do woodwork or sculpting or pins or other crafts that you can hold in your hands, so a variety of art techniques.
Mhm. They look
um,
amazing. All
I
these
know the
druid
Moonkin's so
forms.
good. Yeah,
Mhm. I love it. Very talented artist.
yeah. I also just wanted to discuss PAX East a little bit
Mhm.
because that's going on, and yeah, it doesn't really seem. I know. I don't think a lot's going to be revealed at PAX East. Like, I don't think Blizzard really has a presence at the event. I don't think they're sending very many people out. When I looked at the floor plan, I don't think they even have a booth or a demo area. So
Mhm.
I don't think there's going to be much
Any
to
reveals?
reveal.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know Lore is going, and he tweeted about people being free to hang out, but in my experience, people usually tweet that when there is something like a dinner. Not
Mm.
like, oh, are you around? I'm gonna like tell you about the new game that's coming out.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like I don't think we're getting obviously Rise of Ashara or a classic release date, because then you'd obviously be like playing it on the PAX floor proper, which you're not.
Mhm.
uh I mean, they could always have a blue post having something interesting. For example, we keep getting more blue posts on classic more and more frequently, but I don't think they would drop an announcement with people traveling and not have sufficient hype. No presentation, no demo, and even some people that care about it. A lot of people are out traveling, and then they get con flu. So I think that all the announcements will occur when people are back at home.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. When is
Yeah.
PAX East exactly?
I think it starts officially tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, like obviously people are there already, and it's just
Mhm.
I think that you can see the events in advance, but the keynote speech and all that sort of stuff is on Friday mornings. And Blizzard has done stuff there. They announced Hearthstone there in the past.
Mhm.
They've announced game updates before to Hearthstone. They announced the BFA launch date at last PAX. So it's not without precedent, but in all those instances, it was very clearly, telegraphed with like invitations and panels and like news posts saying, "Come see us. We have demos. If you play the demo, you win a pin, etc."
Mhm. And this time there's nothing like that.
No.
Mm. Okay. So yeah, I guess we're not really expecting anything. If something does happen, that would be a nice surprise. And yeah, well, I guess we'll see. How many days is it? Like 2 or 3, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's sort of this weekend
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess
yeah,
we'll wait and see. Maybe something just pops up. Who knows? And if
yeah. I
if
mean,
they
we will.
would if they would make an announcement, that would usually mean that they actually have like a panel or of some sort.
Right.
I
Yeah.
assume. Yeah. Okay.
I was also going to say, we've got the esports this weekend, so maybe this weekend is all about, you know, MDI, MDI hype and the Eastern Cup qualifications are coming up as well with time trials. So maybe this weekend is like the MDI kickoff hype weekend, and then they're gonna stagger the news out, so every weekend there's some little thing to be excited about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think, maybe there was something planned for PAX and it got delayed after the layoffs, but it doesn't really point to major reveals happening. It would be strange for them to reveal something while everyone else has a big presentation announcing their stuff, and then
Yeah.
Blizzard would just be like, "Oh, blue post."
Yeah, small comment. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, and I think that actually is about it for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, we didn't really have a. I mean, without a PTR, there isn't really a ton to go over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Q&A was cool, but then there was a lot of like very philosophical questions on Ian's end, and there's only so much you can say about like, oh, like slots hidden with Transmog, how nice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really in-depth meaty
Mm-hmm.
discussion, but hopefully we'll have more to discuss soon in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, we'll be doing the weekly show, sharing what we have,
Mm-hmm.
what the community is interested in talking about, regardless of what Blizzard throws at us. But I do hope there's more info. I know a lot of people are really excited to learn how the Azerite system will be revamped. Earlier this week, I put together a guide just highlighting all the 8.2 stuff because it changed since BlizzCon, and a lot of people had forgotten some of the stuff and they were really hype about it. So I'm hoping we get more
When
info
is
on
the
that
revamp
soon.
on the Azerite actually? Is it with
Uh,
8.2?
Yeah, it's with 8.2.
Mm.
So they've been teasing it in Q&As saying that they want you to unlock powers on the neck directly,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of they want to maybe have like certain effects you unlock based on the content you do.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to, all the things on the rings will just be unlocked in 8.2, so you don't have to you know get a piece and be like, oh, it's an upgrade, but I can't like unlock any powers, so that should be fixed. But they've still been kind of vague on details,
Okay.
so I'm curious to see where that's still going to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be
Uh,
interesting because I really wonder how that's gonna turn out. I feel like there's been a lot of complaints about BFA, and the one about Azerite is the main one that I do agree with. I think
mhm.
Azerite has been very underwhelming, especially compared to Legion. It's not interesting. They don't look cool, so it doesn't feel cool. It doesn't act cool. It doesn't do anything which feels good, and it's a shame because that's one of the main features of BFA. So hopefully this revamp will give us something better.
Yeah, I hope they tie it in with the story more as well, because part of the fun in Legion was tracking down hidden appearances or the challenging appearances, or doing content and being rewarded with other appearances, and then also doing your special class campaign to learn more about the artifact and
Mm-hmm.
advancing a unique story. And we just don't have any of that tied to Azerite. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just feels like a very shallow system. It just feels
Mm-hmm.
very kind of threadbare, like, oh, like you'll just get an item with some buttons on it, like click the buttons you like. It doesn't feel like it's stemming from a organic part of the world like artifacts did.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're also lacking visuals. Like I don't know if it's just maybe it's
Yeah.
not an important thing, but I feel like visual is important to me. Like one of the coolest things about even legendaries in the past was how cool they looked, right? Because it wasn't just their strength, it was also that you wanted to show it off as well. And now you have an Azerite piece, and it's like, okay, then let's transmog this into something else.
Yeah, something they said they wanted to do in 8.2 was to have things with interesting looking effects, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, that's cool, but that's still not like a transmog thing. Like, I don't want to be in combat and have things be sparkly. I just want to have something that looks cool when I'm AFK on my mount.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I agree. I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what's gonna happen with that.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
I am as well.
hopefully it'll be very, very cool.
Yeah. And
And
I hope it's revealed in a cool way. Like, I would hate if we get some like weird looking thing in the data mining without context, and we're like, oh, so like here's the names of 10 Azerite traits. Like I hope they have a cool presentation, like some polished videos, or like maybe a Q&A explaining the Azerite, just something more presenting it how they like, as opposed to the community seizing on, some buggy UI when they log in, and like, having their own narrative based on incomplete perceptions. So,
Exactly.
we'll obviously post whatever we find, but it's nicer when we have the polished vision behind it, and not just like, oh, well, here's some strange looking UI and, 5 unfinished spells. It's like, putting your best foot forward.
I wish they would share a bit more, because honestly, it's a little bit worrying, kind of like the beta where we didn't even see the Azerite system for the longest time.
Right. I agree.
And I think that's honestly part of the reason why Azerite was so bad, because there was no time to give feedback for it. For them
it seemed really delayed.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's because they kept revamping it internally or something, which made it impossible for them to share it. But the fact that they shared it so late gave them probably no time to make any changes once the game went live. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I
see
remember
the comment.
with the Legion artifacts. I remember even in the first build, we were data mining information about it, and we could see the maps and stuff of it, the calculators, and yeah, it just seems it feels like the Azerite was introduced later in the process than the artifacts.
And I see the comment, people gave feedback, they just didn't listen. I mean, I know people say that a lot, but I don't know if that's completely true either, because changing the whole system, which sounds like what they're going to do now, is not something that they could just do overnight. But
Right, yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
like you're trying to turn this gigantic like tractor trailer truck around. Like you can't be going 100 miles an hour and like, make a U-turn at the same time.
Like, I agree, there were some things that they could have fixed fast. For example, tuning of the traits, which they were very slow with doing. So there were certain traits that were just so much better than everything else. But in terms of the Azure system itself, which I think as a whole is bad, they could not change that in just, over a few days.
I would say that, they could have, if they were looking at what made artifacts successful, they could have realized earlier that, oh, people like collecting things related to artifacts. Like, we don't have any of that with Azerite. We should maybe put some resources into, beefing the background behind Azerite up. I think that they could have done that, but then, I mean, you obviously don't know what's going on behind the scenes with budgeting. Obviously, budgeting was an issue because Blizzard, ended up laying people off recently, but you don't know if they had more planned for Azerite, and then it's like, oh, well, to save cost, we've decided that they're not going to work on, individual Azerite things. But I still think it would have been worth it to expand and make the Azerite system feel like a real system, and not just, like a slot machine, or just, very sterile. But I mean, you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But I do feel that they should have made more of an effort to add a lot of the world building behind Azerite that artifacts had.
I agree completely. The artifacts felt a lot more alive than the current Azerite system does. Yeah. There was a lot more to do with it. Yeah. Including mage towers, which I hope will be something that we'll see in this expansion too. I think they know people loved it. I think they will bring us something, probably towards the end of the expansion.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, and I think that's about it. I have tried to rechat as much as I can during the show. Hopefully we answered most of the comments and questions. And I think we hopefully were able to thank all the subs and supporters as well. We need beanie transmogs. Wait, there's actually a good point. We don't have any beanies in the game.
Yeah, well, we do. I mean, they do exist in the game, but we just can't equip them. Only the NPCs can use them.
Okay. So maybe there's hope. Maybe there's hope. People like solo challenges? Yes, people do. Because it means that you could progress on something which is your own. Like, you don't rely on other people. I mean, sure, there's Proving Grounds and there's the Brawlers Guild as well, which is great. But the Mage Tower just felt different. I think because it's a different type of scenario.
I mean, so Proving Grounds, I don't know if that's a thing, but they were super popular back in MOP and on Wowhead, and people wanted to do endless rounds and see how high they could get up in the hundreds. Brawlers Guild is still popular, but it's not tuned very difficult right now. But in the past, it was pretty difficult. And Mage Tower was super popular in game, and also people looking it up on Wowhead. So I definitely feel like people like the idea that, you know, they have their weekend, they've got like 5 hours of free time, and they want to work towards something that's not RNG based, but something that they feel they can try and they can just, you know, improve on incrementally and see progress and have that be a project they look forward to. And then when they succeed at it, they know it was challenging and they feel good at it, that they earned something.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem with Brawlers as well, that it wasn't hard enough. Maybe it's difficult to make things hard when it's also like universal bosses for all specs and all classes, which was something else that was special with the Mage Towers, how they were not completely unique to your spec, but only a few specs in the game share the same boss, which means that you could make specific mechanics for that spec. And I think having more of those things make it more... just feels more unique, feels more tailored towards you.
Yeah. I think, though, in the past, the Brawlers Guild was tuned to be higher difficulty, so, like, the mobs just hit harder.
Yeah. Well, maybe they should just tune it higher then. Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, I think just with all the discussion of RNG and not feeling excited when you get a higher level piece, like you didn't really earn it, I think it's important to have the solo skill-based challenges as an outlet for people that do want to do cool stuff to feel like they are proud of their character.
I see somebody asking for the Druid statues shown earlier. This is the article. Maybe through the article you can find how to...
Yeah, there's an Etsy in there.
Yeah, there you go. So you can follow the article to reach the Etsy to see how to get them. They do look pretty cool. Very cool, even. But yeah, I think that's about it from us tonight.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the shortest show in a while.
Yeah.
It's still almost 2 hours, I just noticed, actually. It feels like it's been an hour.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, time flies when you're having fun,
right?
I guess. Yeah.
We will be back next week. Let me double check that we are. Yeah, 4th of April.
Is it still like the daylight savings by you, or does it change now?
It changes this weekend.
Okay, so we should there shouldn't be confusion next week.
Yes. So next week we'll go back to 10 p.m. EU time. Currently it's been 9 p.m. or Central European time. It's currently been 9 p.m. due to the Americans already having their time saving zones done, and we are a couple weeks behind. But yeah, next week we should go back to regular times, so it shouldn't be confusing for anyone.
Yep. So yeah, I guess hopefully we'll have more 8.2 news then, or at least something interesting to discuss. Maybe we'll have more classic news, who knows. But yeah, we'll also have Sass back next week, so that'll be exciting. He'll be doing our giveaways again. And yeah, you know, thanks everyone that's been supporting the site through 815. We're seeing, you know, really good support on our allied race pages and some of our new guides we've been putting out for MDI stuff and some of the experimental lore articles we've had going on. So yeah, I mean, just thanks for being awesome and sharing the content on Wowhead with your, you know, friends and guildmates.
I just also noticed that Rada donated 123 bits and Warble 100 bits, and I think Hero Guy 210 in total now, just another 100 right now.
Oh, wow.
Thank you guys. Thank you. I just saw those. But yeah, so we'll see you guys again next week. Same time if you're American, an hour earlier, no, later, an hour later if you're European. And we'll hopefully have some more things to talk about then.
Yep.
Is it time for the high five?
Yeah, it is time for the high five. Sorry, Bright Paw. He's just sleeping here. We're going to wake you up, baby.
Oh, is he sleeping? Yes, we are.
Well, now he's not anymore. All right. And it's this I forget. We had a guess last time. Okay. Yes. All right. So 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Yes, we did it.
And he's staring up at me like, why is
what
mommy
are you doing, mommy?
Yes, exactly. You're such a good boy, Bright Paw. Do you want to be part of the goodbye? Of course you don't. You're so big to pick up.
Oh, Thanks for the stream. Thank you guys for tuning in,
Yep.
watching, commenting, all the stuff. It's always more fun when you guys are also interested with, having your own comments or questions, because then we can hopefully answer that in one way or another, and it makes things a lot more interesting.
Yeah, we like discussion. We like opposing viewpoints as long as everyone is, respectful of everyone's different opinion. But yeah, discussion is good. It shows that we all care about the game.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, goodbye everyone, and we'll see you next week, Thursday.
Yeah, see ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.